Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I am joined by my friend and fellow hacker at Varonis, KIlian. KIlian, welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a few weeks. I've been missing it, and I'm glad it worked out. I'm happy to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good to see you. Last week we were all very concerned, but sure you were on to some better things, but we got through it. But this week we have a lot of stuff to talk about, including some personal stuff that I have recently acquired. So I myself, I really enjoy electronics and tinkering with them, as I imagine a lot of people in our audience do. So when I get a bunch of prototypes back, I'm usually like gone for a couple of days, like playing with them and kind of getting results back. So that's going to be my weekend. I just got a bunch of prototypes in and I'm really excited about them. So first one is this really cool backpack here. So this is a little Lora radio. And I know we were talking about Lora on the show before. I'm actually going to show this on the screen a little bigger because I think I've got a better photo. Let's see. Oh, yes, here it is. Let me pull that up. So I've been talking a little bit about Lora as a protocol and like as a way of using low-cost devices to send messages over really long distances. This has applications for all sorts of things. You could theoretically fly a drone with this. You could, trigger a backdoor with this. I made the first bad USB attack that I've put together anyway, using Lora not that long ago. And it was really, really cool. And there's a lot of modules out there. So I got together with some friends and we designed this board that allows you to mount one of these two Lora chips. So there's actually two here. The one up top is the RFM. Oh, no, that's wrong. This is the one that is shaped like that one is different. The RFM 95 one is the one below here. And this is the one I'm actually mostly interested in. These ones are really cheap, like less than $4 on AliExpress. They solder right on, and then you can just stick one of these goofy antennas on right here or a professional antenna on right here. I chose to go with the goofy one. This is just a piece of wire that I cut, and I can start sending messages over miles away. So this is the only thing I didn't like is how tiny these components are. They're the size of a grain of rice. All the electronic engineer friends I have told me I was being a baby and that these are huge compared to what we work with. So I was humbled last night repeatedly when I was complaining about how small these were. Like my engineer friend was like, okay, like if I was to pick a solderable one, that's the one I would have picked. But it takes all skill types. So, yeah, I was a little humbled. I also definitely shorted this the first time I did it, but I was working on getting these assembled late last night. And then these ones are the nice ones. These ones are like $12 or so. You can get them on Amazon, and they are the RYL boards. And these ones are nice because they are 4 wires, RX, TX, power and ground. And then there's a reset too, but that doesn't really do anything. And RX and TX is all you need to send messages to this module. And it comes with a built-in antenna. I've tested it. It's got miles of range. And again, you could use this as a remote trigger or as a data collector or sensor or exfiltration, really, if you wanted to, for anything. So imagine that you have this nugget plugged into a power source discreetly somewhere, and it's connected to a Wi-Fi network with its main Wi-Fi chip. Well, this could allow a hacker to basically forward payloads or do all sorts of other things remotely and use that access to the network connection or the bad USB function of this to do like a blended attack. So of course, I'm always looking at cool, low-cost hacking tools. And now I've built myself kind of a nice playground for the next couple months to combine all the evil and cool hacker functions of these little microcontrollers and build something really cool. So I've been excited about this. And the second one that I had come out this week was this updated nugget. So it's a little mysterious. It's like one of those like concept cars, where I'm teasing it. But I've been working with the nugget now for several years, and I've had a lot of ideas for how this could be more useful for the kinds of classes that I like to teach, where I'm plugging in sensors or I'm getting people to try out their first LED project. And I was just like, I want plugins. Like, as much as I love pin headers, like I want like a really simple plugin. So the first thing I asked for was a little connector on the back to make it so that I could use these LED grids. And recently what I've been doing is I've been using these also to act as signs, because you can scroll messages on them and such. So I have a grid right here. I'm going to plug it in. And then I have USB Type-C right here. I'm going to plug it in. And I flashed this already, so hopefully it just works. But my idea is it should be as easy as that to use like an LED grid or something for either education or for some interesting hacking concept. I imagine you could probably exfiltrate data pretty quickly on a grid like this, depending on if you're going to use it as like a, I don't know. I think there's like a lot of interesting applications here. But the idea is you plug it in directly. It has some new connectors and such. So Okay. It just crashed my entire setup. As an open source tool, it does definitely make it a lot easier for you to kind of like mess around and try some of these things. I think I lost the display, but that's okay because it was good. But yeah, okay. I thought that I did something truly spectacular, but I actually just yoinked on the USB adapter that I am running the screen off of. So anyway, that's what I've been working on this week, kind of updating some of these open source cool tools and making it so it's a little easy to teach off of them. I'll have some more demos next week. So probably talking about some of those cool long range hacking techniques I've wanted to show off. Frankly, I've had this like Medusa of that I've been taking around with me everywhere to do these demos. And this is the first time that everything has been soldered together flat and easy to carry around as an actual tool. So I'm looking forward to trying some of that stuff out this week, and we'll have some good, interesting Lora hacking stories.
Yeah.
Kilian, you're tiny again. What happened? Sorry, I know I'm the producer. there we go. All right. So let me see. Is my screen back? Is it smart enough to know that has happened? Yes. Okay, cool. So the last thing I wanted to shout out was oh, no, okay, it's back. So a lot of people in my last stream were saying, hey, if you're interested in this, like, why aren't you trying out ESP now? And that is a really good question. So I want to thank everybody for their audience feedback. It was really cool to have people suggest some other protocols for me to try out. So yeah, I'm going to be trying out ESP now as well for security applications. You know, I want to see if this could be used as a remote trigger, what the range is. And I hear some interesting things that this is basically something you can do with one of these expressive microcontrollers that will give you tremendous range, but like maybe limited data connectivity or maybe like one way kind of transmissions. All right. So Kilian, I wrote an article this week. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. And I was very excited to see it come out.
Oh boy, was I excited to write it. So I had a interesting little segment that I did last week on this kind of XZ backdoor. And what was really cool about this backdoor was, or I guess as a hacker, cool to see, was the way that they took some of these popular attacks that we talk about on the stream like all the time and kind of Frankenstein them together into one super like backdoor like supply chain attack. So we've been talking about Pipel and these typo squatting attacks that are trying to merge malicious code into popular repositories all the time. And we even last week talked about how Pipel had shut down their registration because these types of attacks had become automated and gotten like really, really bad. What's interesting is like the same target here, like trying to get malicious code into these open source repositories that are used all over the place, that they've been trying this for a really long time and very visibly so. So everybody kind of knew, at least like on the stream, that this was going to happen because it was just a constant target. Like we were reporting left and right about all these like Pipel attacks and how many like packages were impacted. So these sorts of supply chain attacks are nothing new, you know? So when a lot of people really like responded to this and were just like, this is crazy, you know, whatever else, like I agree that this attack is big. Like, you know, it's definitely something that's a reminder, but like, it, you know, for me anyway, just reporting the news on this for such a long time, I was shocked by how many people were surprised by this. And so I wanted to write a little piece. And basically my angle was like, you know, like we had SolarWinds in like 2020. We had a lot of other things that made everybody aware that this is now almost a certainty that it's going to happen at some point. Especially when you have some of these maintainers are like, you know, anonymous people with anime avatars who just do great work, you know, and have been part of the project since the beginning, and nobody asked them to get on camera or whatever, because, you know, like they do great work. So these volunteer projects really do have problems sometimes with knowing who all their people are, or like maybe even having a discussion before like rolling out a new release. So looking back at what happened, that's kind of what happened here. You know, like some of these projects had members who either had their accounts taken over or were maybe not who they said they were, and were just building the confidence like to insert something later on. Or maybe they just got a huge like offer, you know, from some random threat actors, like, hey, random maintainer of an open source project, you want $6 million and to live on the beach, and they're just on an island somewhere now, just like enjoying life. You know, nobody really knows what happened here, but the threat is pretty standard now for most companies. And the SolarWinds incident, which if you didn't hear about it, like caused like tens of millions of dollars of damage because a product got backdoored in a supply chain attack. This is just a fact of doing business. So here's a complete list of all the different distributions that issued statements about this. So this was Fedora Linux on their discussion board. This was, let's see, Kali Linux had a security notice released on this, Arch Linux, and then OpenSUSE, I believe. Yeah, Tumbleweed. Yeah. So those were the builds that had it creep into their unstable builds. I believe that Kali Linux actually pushed it out, but most of these were like Fedora Rawhide, Debian Rawhide, were experimental or unstable builds, and it hadn't gotten into the mainline of most Linux distributions. So here's my argument why it's like, basically, this is like something that we just constantly have to expect now, and this is not as big of a deal as people are making. Like, this was really bad, for sure.
Yeah.
It also almost got all the way out, for
Right.
sure. But the fact that this project was an open source project and had so much visibility is arguably why it was detected and why this is the nothing story when it comes down to how many people were actually exploited by this. So as of right now, it appears that there was no active exploitation. So this was caught before whatever plan was going to happen kicked off, but it is an audacious plan, and it is a really good wake-up call and kind of a jump scare to kind of remind people that, wow, like this came really close to happening. Fortunately, the open source community has a good mechanism for dealing with this, but frankly, like, you know, most companies that rely on these products or these open source projects for something inside their build, even if it's just running a virtual machine, you know, like in this case, that's something that they now need to assume could happen. And if it's not part of their strategy, then SolarWinds was a long time ago, you know, like nobody's really sleeping on this anymore. So I kind of felt like while this was inarguably a really big story and pretty impressive, like ultimately it didn't lead to any active exploitation. And this is such a target, and we talk about it every week, that I was generally surprised by how strongly a lot of people in the industry felt about this. The only thing that I wish I could have added to this, and I wish I'd pushed more hard, was there are some excellent memes in the hacker community about how this threat actor like tried so hard and did all these sophisticated and difficult things involving social engineering, whatever else, and then in the very end was just discovered by one guy who like was investigating why SSH logins were a little bit slow, like 500 milliseconds slow. Incredible, like incredible. So like I definitely think that this was a big deal. Like everybody should pay attention to this. But like if this is your first time like seeing a supply chain attack, then these are not new anymore, and they will be back because this has been proven to be an effective attack surface. Ask Piple, like try to register on Piple right now, and you'll see that this is everywhere. So yes, I would definitely say that this was a big deal, and that you know, like people need to look out for this sort of thing. And also, like, again, it could come out tomorrow that actually a bunch of people were exploited, and it's like, you know, classified, and like we'll find out later like what happened. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, it seems as though there was not a lot to take away from this in terms of impact, more about a cautionary tale on what you need to expect either as a business or as a maintainer of an open source project. So, you know, there are some also breadcrumbs that were left, some clues that the hackers or whoever was responsible for this left that might allow people to detect this sort of attack in the future. So one of those things was let's see, changing the contact information intercept vulnerability report. So I thought this one was particularly insidious because they basically like, oh, let me update the contact info on this, and instead inserted themselves into the vulnerability disclosure chain. So basically, if somebody discovered this vulnerability and reported it through the proper channels, it would go directly to the threat actor. That is suspicious.
That's tricky.
And then the other one I thought was really impactful was pull requests coming from people external to the organization, but more importantly, minting new releases from people who don't usually do that. So if one person on an open source team suddenly makes a release and they don't usually do releases, you know, like that is often a sign that maybe this was pushed out quickly. Maybe the other people didn't have a chance to review it. Like typically if there's a process on a team and the same process is followed for most releases, and then there's an abnormal release that comes from like maybe a contributor, but not the normal person that handles releases, or a user that's ever done a release before, that's the kind of thing where you might actually be able to detect this before it actually happens, or at least start to flag certain accounts that might be maneuvering for this sort of attack. So yeah, I mean, I think that there were ways of being able to detect this. A lot of companies that have build environments on GitHub do protect themselves like this. And of course, our sponsor Varonis is one of the ones that does that. But it was just, again, like a lot of people said, like there might not be any way of detecting this, but there really were some breadcrumbs, or at least some signs of elevated risk here when it comes to a user that's doing things that they've never done before on an open source project, which we have now established beyond the shadow of a doubt is a juicy target for hackers looking to potentially backdoor a bunch of machines. This one was very broad, but more targeted attacks, I think, might not go as noticed because way fewer people would be involved in the review process. So the fact that this was so audacious probably means that there were lower key attacks that have gone through on smaller projects or more targeted projects with fewer people. So definitely top line news of the week. Very, very crazy. And check out my article here if you want to learn more. There's also, if you're a developer, some Yara rules that will allow you to detect whether there is a vulnerable binary. Of course, also, you're going to want to go online and see if you're running any virtual machines that might be vulnerable to this by checking for their build number. All right, let's talk about other stuff. I don't want to talk about this one. We've got limited time this week. Let's talk about these fake Facebook Midjourney AI prompts. So everyone is aware now that you can make AI generated images, and a lot of people are still in that. Do you guys remember that fun first phase where like you were like amazed by it and everything looked so good? Like before you started to notice all the weirdness and like the repetitiveness. A lot of people are experiencing that, and that joy and euphoria of doing that, and the lure of getting access to more sophisticated AI generation tools is causing people to fall for scams. And this is happening a lot. So you'll find also that on these Facebook pages, when people get access to Sora, when people fall for this, get scammed and then report it, it gets taken down and then immediately replaced by multiple other scams. So like this seems like a real problem, and that it's highly effective based on the level of interest here when it comes to people falling for scams like this. So obviously, like this doesn't take much to make something like this, because you can use Midjourney or the free like Bing image creator to just make this thumbnail and then just pop in the text. So like the environment for creating the scam exists already with all the AI tools out there, and to just promise people access to even more powerful tools that you probably don't have access to yourself is a pretty easy lure. So be on the lookout. If you're interested in AI tools, make sure you're very careful about where you're sourcing information about them, because your interest in that is now highly coveted by scammers who are trying to get you to download all sorts of bad stuff. Mostly information stealing malware.
Yeah, that was the key for this. I mean, super effective though. Like I'm interested in AI to a certain extent, but like the Sora AI, like the demos that they showed for that were really cool. Like that's enough to get me to go look at it. Like, and again, this would be perfect for a non-technical or a creative person who's not cybersecurity savvy necessarily.
Yeah. And Killian's also, or hi Killian, James is also pointing out that there's a great episode of Darknet Diaries last week talking about using AI generated voices. All right, so Panera Bread, if you've been trying to go there in the last couple of weeks and you've been trying to redeem your ever-filled cup or whatever they're sipping, their monthly sip. I'm sorry, somebody in the audience can tell. Oh, sorry, Panera Sip Club members. I'm sorry, I love these loyalty program names. Like I just find them endlessly funny. But yes, Panera Sip Club members may be particularly frustrated this week because you can't get your infinite free refills of that like lemonade that kills you or whatever it comes from. Is it? Oh, no, I think it's somewhere. I don't know. Whatever.
No, I think it's their lemonade. Yeah, but no.
Yeah. That's what everyone wants in that big cup. So you can't get that, at least for free, because they're not able to process any of their POS stuff. They're taking cash. A lot of their IT is down due to a cyber attack. And this is a ransomware attack that they are so far able to restore some of their systems based on backup, but it seems to be widespread, and it is impacting a lot of their systems, including obviously loyalty programs, POS systems, and other internal systems. So it's going to be a climb up to restore from this. And they are not the only ones this week that are experiencing a public cyber attack. Also, Omni Hotels is experiencing a similar ransomware attack that is making it difficult for guests to get into their rooms. It is affecting reservations, hotel room locks, which I think is the worst one. Not being able to get people in and out of the rooms at a hotel is such an underrated but like very important system. So yeah, this IT infrastructure has been under attack for I think about a week now. Yes, since March 29th. Never mind. That's that's almost a week. And certain systems are offline. They're investigating the situation, and nobody has publicly claimed responsibility. But you cannot currently do credit card reservation, credit card payments, or reservations through this chain of hotels. So yeah, seems like a lot of new organizations are coming forward with ransomware attacks. So it seems like the ransomware affiliate game is alive and well, and there are several public-facing victims, including an entire city that is now declared a state of emergency. So aside from these private businesses, we have an entire county that is called in the Department of Homeland Security. Oh, they have a nice lake. They've called in the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, basically anybody that can help them figure out like what to do about this. And this is affecting a lot of their systems. So it seems as though they have a third-party processor that has, I'm not going to say better security, but separate security that was not breached. And as a result, the actual payment information and a lot of the private information that like people are actually passing through that website is protected. However, the actual infrastructure of the website is not. So that means that a lot of these services are down, and it's impacting 718,000 people living in that county.
This is, and it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but we've seen a number of these like county and local governments getting hit in the last few years, and it's a tough target. You know what I mean? Or it's a tough thing to defend. Because we saw what, like Atlanta, what, a couple years ago, a year or two ago, I think they got hit. It's tough. I mean, the local governments don't have the budget, and they are put in these odd situations.
Yeah. And like there's a number of businesses that that ransomware affiliates have identified as being particularly lucrative to go after, and it's like city governments and anyone that's like if you go after like water and power, or like some of these or like children or some other things that get people really upset, then you will get the full force of a multinational task force like levied against you, and nobody really wants that. They want to be in that sweet middle ground where you're impacting like mortgage like brokers and like stuff like that, where like they really need their data and they absolutely have the money to just pay you to get it back. Like it's just it's worth it to them. However, like this is really straddling the line, like when you impact a whole county and you end up getting the Department of Homeland Security called in, like that might be on my misstep. I don't know that ransomware and Panera Bread gets the federal government involved. I guess is what, like probably the FBI for sure, but maybe not the Department of Homeland Security. So I guess the theme this week is ransomware affiliates making different choices. All right, moving on. Speaking of ransomware affiliates making different choices, we have a data breach exposing the information of 827,000 patients. This also seems to be incredibly sensitive information.
Everything,
full names, email addresses, phone numbers, date of birth, social security numbers, driver's license, government ID, bank account information. Come on, credit card details. Health insurance information, medical records, and history. You're basically becoming this person. If you were to get like an envelope, like to go into witness protection, like this is basically what would be inside of it to become a new person. So I like to say that like we have like, who's getting free credit monitoring this week, but 827,000 people are impacted by this breach. And basically, like, I don't know if this information applies to every person, but that is an incredible amount of data. I don't think that credit monitoring is going to cut it.
No.
Like, just me personally, I would love to see some regulation of how data is stored, kept, or otherwise like managed for American citizens, like it is in the EU, just to prevent, cancer patients from having their entire life like ruined after beating cancer from like, financial fraud. I don't know, like, because it kind of sounds like these people have a lot of bills, and maybe now that this information has been exposed, like it would be really easy for threat actors to go after them, like pretending to be all sorts of people, and that sucks. And that can't be something that's just solved with free credit monitoring. Like I think we're past that point, and it's crazy to me that this sort of thing still happens so regularly.
I guess that's our call to action. If you're here in the United States, contact your representatives and demand that somebody put some privacy legislation in place.
Bye, James. Thank you for stopping by the stream. We always love to have you on. All right. So also, Rodrigo says that we've seen a lot of real estate companies getting hit with ransomware. Yeah, of course, they fit the bill. You know, you don't get the federal government involved. They manage large amounts of money, you know, and they absolutely need their data. Fits the type. Like these are really like the best case scenarios for most of these ransomware affiliates who are going after a target that, you know, won't get Homeland Security involved, but does have the money to cover it, or even better yet, insurance. All right, so let's talk about this crazy new denial of service attack that can crash a web server with a single connection. KIlian, have you seen this? This is crazy.
I did. I saw it. I forget when I first saw it. It was either today or maybe it was yesterday. But I started reading through it. That good idea. Good idea for the HTTP2 protocol for speeding things up. Maybe they missed a piece.
Yeah. So, okay. So for the uninitiated, which I was, you know, 6 hours ago, HTTP 2 allows you to use the continuation frame to stitch between multiple frames so that you can have like a very large file, a very large thing sent across a whole bunch of frames. And they're used to stitch those frames together. Pretty simple. At the end of that is a end headers flag. But if you just get rid of this, you can just basically spam the continuation frames because there's no timeout. So that means from the beginning of the connection, you can just keep saying, hold on forever, like wrap until you basically exhaust the memory of the server. And this is real. You know, this is something that with a single connection, you can start just spamming this to the point and it will just not close and it will just continue to flood it with information. At a certain point, the connection is open and the message is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And memory exhaustion is like the number one thing you can cause on this. And it will crash the server. So there are a lot of different projects that are impacted by this. Notably, Go is impacted by this, like the programming language. So we have CVEs assigned to various technologies that are vulnerable to this attack. This is Node.js, affects Envoy OG HTTP. I don't know what that is, but because I don't use it. Tapista FW, AMP PHP, GoNet, ng HTTP2, Apache HTTPD. I mean, there's a lot, basically a lot of web infrastructures, including Apache servers, are vulnerable to this, and it has a severe impact. So, damn it, there's a list right here that's like organized so nicely, and I'm like trying to extract it. Red Hat, SUSE Linux, Arista Networks, Apache HTTP, yeah, all this stuff. So that is notable. This is an attack that follows a format that we've seen before, but is far more effective than some of the previous attacks we've seen here. So the rapid reset attack is one that was revealed in October and then has been under active exploitation ever since. And this attack is more severe. So if you're looking for interesting new denial of service attacks, this is it. This is some really interesting stuff and is going to have definitely some active exploitation we expect to see. And again, the potential to crash a server with a single connection is really something that people need to pay attention. And researchers here are also reporting that this could be quite complicated for like anybody who doesn't have good HTTP2 knowledge. Like if you don't know what this is and you're getting hit with it, it's going to be super confusing because there's not really like a standard way of figuring out what's going on here. So you kind of need to know about this attack to look for it. And most people don't know about this attack because it came out really recently. So the thought here is that because information on this travels kind of slowly and admins are going to get hit with this and not know what's happening, this could actually have pretty widespread impact just because the information on fixing it is going to be slow to spread.
Totally.
All right. So yeah, this is probably my favorite attack of the week. It's extremely impactful. I think like, honestly, like just an opinion, I think that this is a bigger deal than the Linux backdoor. And I think it's going to lead to way more people having way more problems.
Yeah, if they would have pulled off the Linux backdoor, completely different story. But like this is bad, and it's almost so simple. It's dumb.
Yeah,
I mean
that is the problem. You know, it's so simple, it's stupid, and it's going to take a while for a lot of these servers to get fixed to mitigate this. And with so much of the web infrastructure being impacted by this, I would expect to see denial of service attacks because it's profitable. All these botnets that do denial of service attacks for a profit are always looking for new attacks to add to their bots. All right, so we also have this impacts me personally. So just mentioning Survey Llama being listed on Have I Been Pwned. This is unfortunate, as Survey Llama was a great tool back when I had to do surveys. But this is from a French company that has a number of different affiliates, one of them being Survey Llama. This is including date of birth, email address, IP address, full names, passwords, and phone numbers. I believe that the passwords were hashed on this one, but
I think they were. Yeah.
Okay. Oh
It
yeah.
was
Okay. Here we go.
one other.
Oh,
others.
They were specific.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think that in the EU, you're like required to like say like what type of security you're actually using. You can't just say industry leading encryption. In this case, it looks like Salted SHA-1. Oh wait, this is an or list, not an and list. I was getting so excited. Okay, so it was stored either in Salted SHA-1, which is literally nothing, bcrypt, which is actually something, or Argon 2, which I have actually not heard of and now have to look up. Yeah. So they are not directly usable in clear text, but I would argue that this is the same thing as clear text to me.
Pretty close. Yeah.
You got a computer that has some free CPU cycles. This is going to be clear text. Has some this is the point that I was making with my sarcasm. Right. Thank you very much, Sleeping Computer. All right, moving on. We have 2 Pixel 0-day flaws, making me feel very confident in my hardware choice, that were exploited by forensic firms in order to get access to the devices, even though they were locked. So it seems like researchers with the Graphene OS project were reporting to Google that this had been actively exploited. And Google reported that it was under limited targeted exploitation, which means a company was charging a lot of money, probably to law enforcement, to get into a device that they did not have any other means to get into. So researchers at Graphene OS reported this to Google, and Google responded by doing something. So the fix by Google was, and for the technically inclined, it's a vulnerability. This vulnerability was in the fast boot firmware that supports unlocking, flashing, or locking. Forensic companies were rebooting devices in after first unlock state into fast boot mode on Pixels and other devices to dump the memory, and then going through that memory forensically to dig for information in pursuit of some sort of investigation. So Google's fix was to zero the memory when loading fast boot mode, which then only allows USB connectivity after the zeroing process was completed, which seems like a relatively straightforward way of doing that. I mean, at a certain point, the information gets zeroed out before you're able to access it over USB. So how can you get it? But that is not a complete fix, according to the researchers at Graphene OS. They are looking for a more robust implementation because they argue if you cut the power before the wipe happened, you could basically put it in fast boot mode, cut the power, and then just like, I guess, access the memory modules directly and pull the information out of them. It's not as straightforward, but if the FBI is paying you $1 million, you can probably figure it out.
Sure.
So just again, like it's cool to see that the researchers here that discovered it are saying, no, like this is not enough. Like we would recommend going even further because that is their brand, right? Like Graphene OS is like a more security focused thing you can have on your Pixel, which is now honestly making me consider it. But yeah, like it does seem like there might need to be a little bit more work done here to keep your information truly secure. So if you have a Pixel phone, just be aware that there's been limited exploitation from forensics companies, but that always means the trickle down cycle. Now that it's burned, this is going to trickle down to, like skeezier and skeezier, like cyber mercenaries who are just willing to sell this stuff to anybody that wants to break into a phone or get access to a phone. So you can expect it to see on the gray secondary market, or bundled as like forensics kits or whatever else, for investigators now that it's been burnt. But every time there's a Pixel vulnerability, I get a little worried. So this one seemed like it was relatively limited, but I'm going to update immediately. The U.S. State Department is investigating some alleged theft of government data that has been posted by a data broker online. This is purporting to be information from the Five Eyes intelligence alliance, which to me seems like the one alliance aside from also NATO that you really want to not piss off. So the notorious group accusing of being able to spy on anyone had their files leaked, and the person brave enough to broker that information is attempting to make money off of it. So this is Apparently also seeing some overlap with information that has previously already been stolen from government agencies. So the implication here is that there might be some padding, and there might actually be not that much new information and a lot of old information kind of padded together to make this breach look larger.
Yeah.
Oh my! I have to say, like, thank you so much to our audience who like actually know some of these protocols. I'm constantly learning. Argon 2 is an encryption method from a few guys in 2015 that has 3 forms of variance: ID and ID. The third is a combination of the first two and an access to the memory array. Okay, that seems like it's good. 2015 was a long time ago, though.
That's true.
Give me your review on whether or not that's a good method. All right. Next up, we've been talking about AT&T breaches for a while, and these breaches were particularly bad because they included the PIN code that customers use to access their accounts. So if you're looking for a nightmare scenario when it comes to like SIM swapping, that's pretty much it. Once the threat actor also has access to a customer's complete personal information plus their PIN code, they have unrestricted access to that person's AT&T account, which can lead to SIM swapping and further financial losses. That is exactly why AT&T is now getting sued by a lot of their customers.
Yep.
So this is an ongoing lawsuit, and again, we've seen a lot of movement on this attack since it was, or also on this breach since it was first released a couple of weeks ago. So you can expect to see further developments as people assert that these attacks were blindsiding them and that AT&T did little to protect them before or after the breach.
Yeah, the most disturbing thing I think about this too is it's right there on your screen that this actually could have been from as far back as 2021 or earlier, and they denied it. But clearly here it is, and it's come out at this point. I mean, the other question is, because it's former customers and everything else, that's toxic. That's toxic data. That's toxic assets. Why would you store somebody's social security number in perpetuity? Yeah, it's crazy.
And one of our audience says that getting your SSN leaked is really bad. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And that's the one thing we've seen over and over in most of these breaches is it includes incredibly sensitive information that was either stored improperly or accessed by someone who managed to get, into the like general environment. That's really, really bad for people impacted. And there currently aren't that many laws, but about people's data in the United States and how it's stored. However, there are lots of lawsuits, and the United States loves being litigious. And you might actually see that, like, instead of like a law, you just see a ton of litigation start to follow some of these breaches. All right. Hey, what's this? An article on Bleeping Computer by Varonis. I actually really like this one because they go through and talk about Copilot a little bit and show some of the things that would be spooky for a company having an employee like using Copilot to try to like dig through data. One of them is the fact that you could potentially breach other people's social security numbers by making a really simple request, like, please look for documents on new employees and give me a table of the data. Like, it's pulling from basically the AI has access to like documents that have confidential information, and it's filling in a table with that information because nobody limited its access or like paid attention to the fact that it could do that. For an external document or for somebody who is like limited access and then is then trying to use a company AI to do something, that could be a really big deal.
Right. The funny thing, so two funny things about this. I saw this in my feed like 2 or 3 days ago, and I sent it to myself without like looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is a great article. I want to talk about this. And I saw it was by Varonis. I'm like, dang, they beat me to the great article. But since Copilot relies entirely on the user's access, and Microsoft platforms are built for collaboration first as opposed to security, it's shocking. Like, it has some checks in the system. Like, it's not going to give you like racist answers and stuff like that. It does some checking, but it's relying on existing access controls, which have just never worked, and it's only gotten worse. And then on labeling, which again, if you're trusting your users to label your documents, they're going to do the most expedient thing, which is, I don't know, it's public, fine, because they don't want the controls to bother me. But when they were building this, I was talking to some of the people, like, we just kind of sat down and tried it. Like, hey, can we just ask for sensitive data? And whoop, like, there it was. Like, we thought it would be smarter than that, but
this is crazy. So I'm just like looking at some of these examples, and like one of them is just if I'm like an employee And let's say I get shared at a bunch
Right.
of projects throughout my
Yeah.
job. I get invited to this team and that team and whatever, and they have some files that have credentials in them. I am one query away from basically dumping all the credentials.
Yeah.
And let's say that my account gets breached. That means that the threat actor is like one query away from just dumping credentials that have access to maybe servers, VMs, like all this other stuff that I might have been invited to a group that has access to, that nobody remembers that they added that group to access a certain file.
Oh, it's wild. I mean, this is the cyber criminal's best friend. If you don't really, if organizations don't really invest in securing it properly. I mean, for years, a lot of people have gotten away with security through obscurity. I mean, but this puts it right in every business productivity tool that all of your users have. There's no escaping this. And it's billions of dollars in business for Microsoft to roll out Copilot to their customers. So they're not going to leave that money on the table. Yeah. Everybody's going to have it.
Yeah. So look, what I'm taking away from this is basically anybody could use this to potentially dump information that they've been accidentally shared on. And it takes advantage of access control problems where you have people being shared on vast amount of information. I'll just give a little example. I was part of a technology company a while back that excluded contractors from all their meetings. However, I was shared on the notes from all these meetings. So I was not allowed to be physically in the room, but I got a digest that they were unaware that they had assigned to me. It was just they forgot about it. So all these secret meetings where I was excluded and the information was supposed to be not for contractors, I was emailed that separately to read, and I never requested access.
Right.
So this sort of thing happens really all the time, and just making it worse by being able to request that information just means any employee getting breached that has access to this now suddenly is able to raid the organization for secrets that have been accidentally left on the table. So that's pretty crazy to me. I've been using Copilot a little bit. I'm getting more used to it. So just realizing how powerful it actually is has been crazy. But I don't know if anybody else in the audience has used Copilot at your organization and seen if it does anything like this, but maybe don't run these exact queries. I will say that I think, I think that pay scales are fine to talk about, but I don't necessarily think that, social security numbers of other employees are fine to talk about. So I would I would just highlight this one, but there's a lot of personal information, a lot of potentially credentials. And of course, the argument here is if you're leaving out credentials, then you're going to get suddenly an unauthorized, you're basically enabling an initial access broker to turn around and use that access to your system, that API key you managed to pull out of a system to make $100,000 while the ransomware broker or the ransomware affiliate then goes ahead and makes $10 million.
Right.
So there's a heavy incentive to use any access you have to potentially sell these secrets, and being able to rummage through an organization with the help of AI and find exposed secrets. That's a big deal. That's really scary for these people that are rolling this out rapidly. All right. Almost done. I'm going to skip this one because Chrome is also trying to phase out cookies. But if you're interested, you can take a look at this. It's basically device bound session credentials. And the only reason I think it's cool is it uses the device's TPM chip.
Yep. That's it.
TPM chip, and it basically authenticates cookies with that TPM. So if someone steals the cookie, then it doesn't work. But Google's also simultaneously trying to phase out all non-Google cookies entirely and just work through their own weird tracking thing in Chrome. So while I like this and I think it's cool, it also seems like Google has kind of a mixed commitment to whether or not we're even going to be using cookies.
Sure.
All right, next up. Google has agreed to delete the Chrome browsing data of 136 million users who are looking up weird stuff in incognito mode. So if you have used incognito mode, your information was actually being sent directly to Google, and they were collecting it. They argue that they weren't linking it to specific users, but anybody who knows about how data linking works knows that's a pretty weak argument when they can just combine and enrich it with other information or sell the data and let other people enrich it for them. So this is absolutely how all of those weird search results are going to come back to get you. And fortunately, they've been ordered to delete this information. And hopefully this will give people some more awareness into how this sort of data is actually harvested and used. Google was very misleading about the way that they presented how the search engine data was stored. And let's see. Google, according to the plaintiff, the changes imposed on Google's due to the proposed settlement have a conservatively estimated value of $4.75 billion. So this is a pretty big, judgment. All right. Oh, I don't even want to talk about this. We're done talking about this one. All right, goodbye. Okay, this was the wildest story of the entire week. And so if you've ever had someone who calls you and like they're like, hello, I am the FBI. Like, you have a warrant and you need to give me $100. Usually you're going to like yell at them and be like, you know, you suck. Like, I hate you. But you might not have considered that you might actually be talking to a victim of human trafficking.
Right.
So this was a wild angle on something that I thought I already knew, like what was going on. But apparently 250 Indian citizens had been lured to Cambodia with offers of jobs and then were forced instead into conducting cybercrime when they arrived. So this was basically like forced labor, calling people pretending to be government agencies and doing what were clearly like super aggressive scams. So these people were held captive in Cambodia and forced to launch scams that generated nearly $60 million for the last couple months. So this seemed like a highly lucrative organization, but using effectively slave labor. So crazy that in certain areas where these sorts of cybercrime like organizations can flourish, like they're making millions of dollars on these scams, and where they can get away with it, they're willing to literally enslave people and then have them do the dirty work of actually reaching out and getting yelled at, or like, you know, just like accosting senior citizens and trying to take their pensions.
I mean, this is wild. I don't even know what to think about this. I would have never thought about this in my wildest dreams that this happens, but that's bold.
It kind of makes me want to be nicer to those people that do the scams, you know, because I've always yelled at them. And like now I feel like, you know, I should maybe be more sensitive. I don't know. It also makes me wonder, you know, like I always kind of had a weird feeling about those like YouTube channels that just like torture scammers or whatever, or like attack them. And I'm like, some of it makes sense. But like, you know, if these people are like victims of human trafficking, then like it sucks, you know, like they don't need any more stress. Like their lives already seem hard enough. All right, so OWASP was reporting a data breach by a wiki configuration, and this involves people's resumes. So that is unfortunate. Obviously, like resumes are supposed to be semi-public facing, so like it is completely on an individual basis as to how much information you put on there. But a lot of people put their home addresses, contact information, and other stuff on there along with their full work history, and that might not be publicly available for like everyone. So unfortunately, it seems like this information was from 2006 to 2014. And they are committing to reach out and notify members. But as someone that's used like some of OWASP's tools, and since they are like a security organization, any sort of data breach is definitely news. It seems like, again, these are relatively old and also, you know, like semi-public facing information. So this isn't exactly like social security numbers or anything like that. And it does come down to how much information the person does put on their resume when giving it out. But I hate to see these breaches involving resumes because it makes me paranoid about, you know, my own. All right. And then I'm going to, you know what, I think we're done for today. This is another data breach, but I barely know about this one. I am exhausted from this XD backdoor and then a bunch of other stuff this week, and there's been a lot of movement just in terms of you know, data breaches, ransomware attacks, like all this. Kilian, you're small again. There we go. But yeah, so lots happened this week. I've got some new hardware I'm going to be testing out and hopefully showing off some cool new hacking tools next week. And of course, if you want to support the stream, you can always go to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody, and let them know that you appreciate the stream, you want us to keep going. And yeah, it doesn't cost you anything. So we will be back next week on Wednesday with a live Q&A session. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts that came up during the stream, feel free to reach out to us on the YouTube channel where I will check and answer questions. Or you can also go on our Discord server where we also can usually answer questions before then. So check you out on both. And Kilian, thank you for joining us again this week. It was nice to have you back. All right. We will see everyone next week then. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.